Hello and welcome. This is Cherie with Rehashfiber. I want to extend a special welcome to those of you that are joining me for the very first time because you are curious about learning how to knit. Knitting for me has been one of the most special treasures in my life as far as things to do because it has turned every moment into a good moment. So no matter how I'm feeling, whether it's good or bad, and all the feelings in between, when I'm knitting, I always feel better. There is a certain rhythm and soothingness to it, but also there is a feeling of excitement that happens as you see your item grow, but also as you see the yarn go through your fingers, and each stitch and each row gives you more of what you're going for, and it's just really fun. So I really would love for you to be able to feel that too. Now, you have to know where to get started. You need yarn and needles. And I know in the beginning I was like, how do I even start? Okay, so I'm going to give you the brief overview today. Okay, yarn comes in what we call weights. Actually, the weight is meaning the thickness. So it comes all the way from lace to thick and bulky. It can get thinner and it can get even thicker than this. I just have this example for you today. For you to get started in knitting, it's going to be best to start with like the middle sizes. So we call that, if you go to a big box store, it's going to be 3 or light or 4 in medium. Once you're in the fiber world, we have a little bit different names. It's going to be the DK weight and the worsted weight. Those are a nice middle weight, not too thick, not too thin. And also you will need needles to go with that. So that will be about a US size 6, 7, or 8 to go with those weights. Now what I'm going to advise you is do not get straight ones like this. This is actually old-fashioned and uncomfortable. I think people still might use them for certain situations. I don't use them for knitting at all. I have these left over to do weaving techniques on the loom and also to show you. Do not get the straight ones. Get circular knitting needles. You're not going to be knitting circular in the beginning. Knitting is taking the needles and you're doing the stitch and you're taking it from the left to the right. Then you'll just turn the needles around, just like if they were separate, and do it again. Okay, so you want a nice circular knitting needle. They sell them at the big box stores and they sell them at the yarn shops. This will be the most comfortable thing for you because your knitting will take place like so. No big sticks hanging out there, okay? Now, for your very first yarn, it really doesn't matter. And what I mean is the quality doesn't matter. So you do want a like middle size weight to get going. But it could be any old yarn you find, a hand-me-down, anything, a cheap acrylic from the store, just to get started. Because what you're going to do is you're going to be making mistakes. I want you to practice and practice until it feels almost second nature. In the meantime, you're going to lose stitches. Things might be weird. I want you just to cut it out, not worry about great yarn. You can cut things off, start again. So don't worry about your very first yarn to learn on. I've got a couple more tips for you when you're picking out your yarn to start with. Whether it is the yarn you're going to practice on to learn these stitches or the yarn you're going to use for your first item, choose a light colored yarn so you can easily see the stitches. These are great for starting. And you'll see when I get to teaching the stitches, you really do want to see what's going on. If you choose something kind of dark, it's a little bit harder to see. And wait till the day you make something out of black. It is really interesting. I've got a huge light network going on to knit with black. So for you beginners, light colors, save all these wild and fun colors for maybe your first project, but not for the yarn that you're learning on to start with. The other tip is you're going to have to find out in your area or peruse online. I think it's a good idea to also have the knit instructions in paper. It's nice to have a still image. That is how I learned from this book, just following exactly what is going on in the picture. This particular leaflet is over 27 years old. So what I'm saying is just to go ahead and look online, look at your local craft stores or yarn shop for any leaflets they may have with nice knitting instructions in print. I am going to be teaching you how to knit the continental style. All right, with that information, you are now armed. You can go get your yarn. If you are nowhere near a yarn store or a big box craft store, you can also go to Amazon. I also have a link there. I'm an Amazon affiliate. You can go check out the yarn and the needles there if you'd like to purchase it that way. But I always think it's kind of fun to touch the yarn. So moving on to that, you've got your information for shopping, but I'm going to tell you just a little bit more about yarn, because this is what makes the world really, really fun. Okay, good yarn enhances the whole thing. Mind you, the first rule in all of this is for you to have fun. So no matter what yarn you're using, if you're having fun, perfect. That's all that matters. But what makes things more fun for me is good yarn. Good yarn made from natural fibers. So anything from animal to plant, it feels very good. There are also combinations, and that feels good as well. So what I would like to do is send you out on an adventure. If you have a yarn store near you, or are out traveling or anything, go to the yarn store. You may tell them you're brand new, but I would like you to go look at all the yarn. I would like you to see some of the exciting things that come from the yarn stores, okay? Beautiful colors, beautiful feeling items. Very fun. These things are like a party in your brain to knit, okay? Look at these colors. Also, there's times just a good feeling merino wool of a solid color feels good. I even have wool that's a little bit scratchy and rough from Iceland, straight from the sheep. Okay, and we're back to some thick stuff here. So go check out your yarn store and explore. You can touch and feel and see what you would like. When you're there, you may see some yarns you would like to use for your first project. Whenever you're shopping for yarn, check out the labels. They are full of great information. They'll tell you the content of the yarn, how much is there, oftentimes what needle size to use, what gauge you should go for, and more. Very interesting. When you get into these indie dyers and stuff, they will tell you other great information. It's just a good way to know what you are working with. We'll also get into it more later, but when you are starting to read patterns, it is going to tell you how much yarn you need, and that is also how you're going to know how many skeins of yarn that you need for your projects. I have to share something with you. All right, so when you go to the big box stores, a lot of things are already in balls for you, and you can just start knitting from them. Going to nice yarn stores, you're going to find skeins like this. So these are the skeins that are wrapped up with their labels on it. They will need to be made into a ball or a cake. Yarn stores have a ball winder, so just have them wind it for you. And then if you really get into this and you buy enough of these, you will end up buying your own ball winding stuff. But I'm going to show you. They call it a hank or a skein. This is because the indie dyers purchase the yarn undyed and they put their special dye on them and then sell them. And this is how they do it, by laying these skeins of yarn in a tray and dyeing it. So I think it's really lovely because you get to see all of the colors and it's a whole lot of fun. So you will see plenty of skeins just like that. And also a lot of the yarn stores do have things already wound as well. Just depends on the maker. So to talk a little bit more about the weight of the yarn, which is actually meaning the thickness, I do want to send you to a great site that you can peruse and learn some more on. It's called DIY Candy. And on there, they have a great chart that will tell you all kinds of information. It will tell you about the yarn weights, the common names, the stitches per inch, the needle size, and even more. Yarn goes from very thin to very thick, and there are needles that match. You see this is a very thin needle that will be great for lace weight, all the way up to some super thick knitting needles for big, bulky yarn. Most of the time you use the needles to match the weight of the yarn. Little needles, little thin yarn. Big, big. That way your knitting creates a nice fabric. However, there are times when you use bigger needles with thinner yarn so that you can have a lacy effect, or you can use thinner needles with thicker yarn to get a very dense effect. That would be used for if you're making yarn into maybe a stuffed animal where you want it really tight and the stuffing will not come through. Or like I've made yarn bowls before and you want it really tight so they will stand on their own. So that is the basic overview of yarn and needles. All right, so enjoy shopping and looking around and learning about yarn. And once you have your supplies, I will see you very soon for lesson number 1 in casting on and learning the knit stitch. All right, everybody, happy yarn shopping and thanks for watching.